fun. It's going to be so much fun. Oh, dude. Again,
I've been excited.
thank you for coming on, man. Thank you for coming on. I'm excited. This is going to be a real fun one. I'm going to just skip all the intros, and because I really want to get right into a whole lot of things. uh, so, uh, Joel, you are a musician, a wonderful musician, man. Your band is amazing. Um,
Thank you.
I thank you again for you allowing me to use one of your songs for one of my episodes when I had Tony D as a special guest when he was talking about the Jersey Devil, and I got some friends of mine who are like, dude, I started following him on Spotify, and this is awesome, man. So I thank you so much for letting me use your song.
No, I appreciate it. Honestly, I whenever I first kind of started putting feelers out there to different podcasts, there's a lot of startup guys that, it's no secret that like the cryptid. Oh, I've got a kid that's already running in here. And
That's awesome, man.
hey, Tansy, come here real quick. Hey, come here real quick. This is my youngest, and she's maybe a mess right now. Hold on. Come here. I've got wires and stuff everywhere. Okay. Here she is. Hello. All right.
Hello.
We got a glance. Now, I need you to go back in the house and go close that door. Thank you. All right. Can you lock it, please? Thank you.
If mine was still up, he would be running in here also and like trying to get in the camera and trying to get in the microphone.
Yeah. All right. Well, sorry for the hopefully that's the only interruption. Early and only.
No, this is fantastic, man. This is great. I love this.
Yeah. We have 5 kids. So she's our youngest. She's 7, and my oldest is 16, almost 17. So we have quite the crew around here. So it's always always exciting. No, what I was saying was when I first started kind of putting feelers out there to different podcasts, it's no secret that the cryptid thing has really become a popular thing in the last few years, which has been exciting for me because I started writing a lot of this music like in 2010, 2011. And it was at the time, it was just a kind of a fun, I thought a fun idea that nobody would care about. And it was really just for me. And so I recorded those 4 songs that are on that EP. And then as the cryptid community has kind of grown and the internet presence has really grown, I think it's always been there. Obviously, there's always been the cryptid community, the conspiracy community, like all that kind of stuff has been there for a long time. But now there's much more awareness of it, and it's become kind of a pop culture craze a little bit. And so I just started reaching out to different podcasts. And you were one of a few that were like, dude, yeah, we'd love to talk to you. And honestly, I wasn't even looking for interviews. I was just like, hey, I think that people in the community might enjoy my songs. And so it was really just here you go. Like, no strings attached, and everybody's been pretty gracious. And I did an interview with another podcast recently. And there've been a handful of people that have used some of my songs. And so I'm just thrilled that people enjoy it.
That's awesome.
Like I said, whenever I first wrote this stuff, I thought nobody's ever going to give a crap about this. It's just for me. And then I've discovered a whole community online of people that really enjoy the stories and I guess think that our music is pretty okay. So that's fun.
Yeah. I mean, real quick, two probably my favorite songs is the one I use for the show is I Am the Loch Ness Monster, and then the other one I absolutely love is Point Pleasant. Two fantastic songs on that EP.
Thank you.
You are working on some new material, right?
Yes. Yeah. We have about 6 new songs that are not on that original EP. And so those 4 songs that are on the original recording will get a new treatment because I have a band that's playing with me now. When I originally recorded that, it was just my drummer and me. So I did all of the parts, all of the vocals, and just had him do drums because I'm not a good drummer. I can play everything else but that. And so it was just, like I said, a pet project. Never intended to play shows, never intended to become a band. And then it just kind of happened after coming back from the pandemic and realizing, hey, we could get out and play some shows if we wanted to.
Right.
And then it just kind of took off. And so at first it was just, hey, let's play some shows with the songs we have. And then it was during band practice, oh, I have this idea. Let's write another one. Let's write another one. And so this past year has been fun. A lot of new songs have kind of just poured out. So yeah, some pretty cool ideas. So I think that you guys will be excited to hear them. I don't want to give away too much about them. They're not all specifically cryptid based, but there's a couple that are good ones that I think people will like, that, creepypasta kind of lore and that kind of thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Stories that you hear on certain podcasts, so I think it'll be fun. I think some of them will land pretty well. And so we're looking to hopefully record that next month. We're going to try to get in the studio and track it all. And so later this year, hopefully a full length album. And with all the fixins, we're going to do vinyl. We're going to do the whole shebang.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, so this is obviously for two of my shows. This is for 50 States of Terror that involves cryptids, and the other half is going to be for Narrative Quest, which talks about the creative process and how you create, your work and everything. I want to start from the very, very, very beginning. You are from Alton, Illinois.
Yes. Yeah.
I was looking at pictures from Alton, and I gotta say, what a gorgeous like downtown area. It looks like you're stepping into like this late 1800s, architecture, and then the mountainside right behind it, and then the river going into Missouri. Growing up, did you hear a lot of stories about cryptids in that area?
So I actually grew up in Maryville, which is about 25 minutes from here, a little bit further inland, I guess from the river. Subdivision out there, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Little suburban area. And we would drive through Alton all the time because the river road, right, like you were saying, the bluffs here and the way that the river runs along, there's a road that runs right along the river, Route 100. It's a historic route. And so my dad and I, we would drive up here and watch the leaves change, and we would drive through Alton. And I always thought Alton was so cool looking.
Oh, nice.
And there was always this like lore around how haunted Alton was. And if you look into any information, it's the claim to fame is that like Alton is like one of the most haunted small towns in America.
Yes.
And so there's some pretty interesting stuff here, cryptid stuff. There was actually right after we moved here, which was we just moved to Alton last year in the beginning of the summer. And like the week after I moved here, there was a alleged Mothman sighting. And I think it was probably just an owl or something like that. But, there was this whole article that was written about it. And all of my friends were like, dude, of course, as soon as you moved to Alton, there would be a Mothman sighting. Because, obviously Point Pleasant. And so I've kind of developed this, persona around this stuff where my friends, they buy me Mothman plushies and figurines and stuff like that all the time. So it was kind of funny to have that happen. But there's a specific thing in Alton on the bluff where natives drew this. This is the Alton cryptid specifically. They drew this creature on the side of the bluff called the Piasaw bird. And it's like this part lion, part eagle, part it's almost like Griffin-esque, but reptilian and has a human face. And the stories are like the natives drew it on the bluff cliffs to like scare people away, and that kind of thing. But
wow,
it's pretty interesting local history. I actually had a local history teacher in high school who used to always talk about the Piasaw bird, and he would do like this weird perch pose and then scream like a freaking maniac, which was hilarious and made us all die laughing all the time. But we wouldn't hear so much about cryptids in Alton as much as we would hear just about the haunting. You know, everything's haunted around here. There's old buildings, old limestone. Um, you know, there's quarries where the bluff's been cut out, and so people
Yeah.
talk about how, you know, this will get into, you know, some of the ghost hunters and paranormal investigator people out here really dig this stuff. But like limestone apparently like holds energy is kind of some of the lore around that. And so you had this prison that was here that, you know, housed a lot of, unfortunately there were slaves and things like that. And so there are people that say there's a lot of like negative energy stored in the stone, and then a
Right.
lot of that stone was used to build houses. So my house was built in 1903. I haven't seen anything that I can really verify. I've, you know, corner of my eye kind of stuff, but you know, who knows?
So no
My
apparitions, no orbs,
no,
no. No.
no, not anything that I could really confirm. You know, late at night you're watching TV and you think you see something out of the corner of your eye or whatever, but not anything that's really spooked me. My middle boy will say, "I heard, you know, I'm hearing voices and blah blah blah," but he leans into it. You know, he kind of wants. I think he kind of wants it a little bit, but also is
Yeah.
like terrified of it. And I think his older siblings, I think maybe the voices, they're messing with him probably.
So is that what started everything with like the fascination of like the paranormal, and then leading into the cryptids about your music writing? Was it starting at an early age, hearing those stories, and then being so close to these indigenous peoples and what their lore was, and then the fascination of everybody else around the community, you know, focusing on the same thing? Did that like spark this whole entire thing?
It's definitely been creative fuel since I've gotten here, for sure. I think when I was a kid, you know, there were things like, well, I was born in '84, so like Ghostbusters was super popular. Um, Tales from the Crypt, X
Oh
Files
yeah.
became a, you know, X Files became a thing.
I'm
I had,
41, so I'm right there with you.
yeah, yeah. So I'll be 40 this year, and I've got a My Pet Monster actually like up over in the corner, like the original stuffed animal is still sitting up here in my
Nice.
garage. I was always kind of like fascinated by that stuff. The title of the opening track on the EP is called "There's a Nightmare in My Closet," and that's actually named after a children's book that my mom used to read to me when I was a kid, and it simultaneously like scared me and like entertained me. I don't
No
know what my
way.
my relationship with that book was weird because I loved it, but I also would go to bed thinking like there's definitely something in my closet, and so that coupled with, and I'll be honest here. Maybe this will turn some people off, maybe it won't. But I grew up Christian, you know, so my spiritual faith was kind of tied to some of this stuff. And the interesting thing is, and there's a song about this that's going to be on the full length record, is, you know, you go to bed at night and your parents tuck you in and tell you that there's no monsters in the closet. But on Sunday morning, I would hear about like the scariest monster in the closet ever. And
Right, right.
so there was like this dissonance where like I knew, like I always just had this feeling that like something evil was out to get me, you know? And so, you know, years later, I've kind of dealt with those things, and a lot of it was dealing with those things in songwriting, right? Kind of confronting fear and kind of standing up to the boogeyman and being like, "Hey, you don't scare me anymore," you know?
Yeah.
Um,
I often make the joke that I'm a recovering Catholic. That
yeah, yeah,
like it's embedded. It's like it's so doused in that vice versa 50-50, you know,
yeah,
good versus evil. But then when you talk about the evil, it is so they put so much emphasis and powerful words associating with it at a young age. Like sometimes you either grasp to it and make friends with it, or you become like it's just like it's the thing that nobody talks about, but we kind of like already know
yeah.
that, hey, let's just not talk about this thing, you know what I'm
I
saying?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people walking around with it, and I think that explains part of the attraction to my music specifically. You know, the people that I interact with that are interested in it, but also there's, I mean, you know, the occult and stuff is really popular in pop culture, and I don't think it's because people are actually worshiping Satan. There's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there that think that there's really bad stuff going on. I think
Oh
there's a
yeah.
lot of people walking around with like spiritual trauma that are like, like you said, you either embody it and like go, yeah, like this is, almost kind of giving a finger to the oppressive system that you grew up in,
Right. Right.
or kind of standing up to the thing that always scared you and being like, yeah, that doesn't scare me anymore. For me, it's a little bit of both, because you said it like this. There's so much emphasis on that evil and the scary stuff. But I was always told like that the light drives out darkness, but somehow like my light wasn't strong enough to do that.
Right. Right.
But I didn't leave like Jesus behind. I left the institution behind that told me that Jesus wasn't like powerful enough to like handle all of that stuff. And I'm not overtly like, I don't overtly talk about my faith necessarily in my music, but it is like coping with some of those things and kind of wrestling out, like keeping the good and like leaving the bad.
Oh yeah. I mean,
So
I've talked many times on the show that how I left the church a long time ago, when essentially what happened is when I woke up and noticed like the hypocrisy that was going on within the establishment, and then the physical part of it, but not the spiritual part of it, which I kind of like just lean onto, but it's for me, and no one else gets to tell me exactly what I can and cannot do. It's me.
yeah,
It's in when you do talk about the 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 part, because I lived during the satanic panic,
yeah,
when I was a huge Dungeons and Dragons player, and I still am a Dungeons and Dragons player. But when like an institution came by and says, no, that's devil worship, like, no, it's not. Like, what are you talking about?
right,
And
yeah.
and yeah, it's correlation. Like I'm like, yeah, I 100% agree, and can 100% be with you on that.
Yeah. So let me say one little thing to speak to that, because it's very important to me that I clarify this thing with people when I can. And that is, when you distrust everything, right? Like that's the whole thing with like Dungeons and Dragons is satanic. It's because any little thing, it's like, oh, they're trying to lure our children in, and they're, all of this stuff. And it's like,
Yeah.
on one hand, I'm told to love people and like love my neighbor and don't judge people. But on the other hand, it's like, no, judge everything because it could be out to get you. And what I realized is like, if God tells, I mean, if everyone is my neighbor, the way that I'm told that's true, like everyone is my neighbor. But if I distrust them, then I can never actually love them. And therefore I've not actually carried out the commandment, because I've been so scared and held everything at bay because I can't trust anyone.
Yeah.
Um, so I wrote a song that's like specifically about that, about, like I was saying earlier, my parents would tell me, no, it's okay, that's not real, go back to sleep. But on Sunday, tell me, no, this is really scary and bad and evil, and stay away from people like that. And, now my dad looks at me as I surround myself with people that wear black makeup and, dark clothes and stuff like that. He's like, what's happened? I mean, you see the picture up behind me.
Yeah.
I was in School of Rock, the musical, a couple years ago. I was Dewey Finn. And so that was our Maggot Death poster. You know how he used to be in a
Nice.
heavy metal band. So that's actually me and my buddies dressed up, and my brother-in-law photoshopped it and made us look like we had black eyes. And my dad is just like mortified by some of the stuff. But I've been clear to him. I'm like, Dad, it's not, I'm just doing what I was always told to do. And that is to not judge people and love them. And, there are people in all kinds of places, especially the dark places. People are very lonely, and they just need somebody that's like, hey, I see you, you're fine. Like I'm not here to change you. I'm not here to tell you what you're doing is wrong. Like, I just want to be your buddy and
Yeah. Hell
be
yeah,
your
man.
friend. So
Yeah. Like hey, everybody out there, go find a goth kid and hug them really tight, man,
Yes,
because goth kids are fucking
absolutely.
awesome.
Yes, absolutely. And not just goth kids. I mean, just kind of weirdos in general. I was always that guy in school that hung around every group. You know, I saw the cliques, but I just was like, I'm not participating in that. I was a varsity basketball player, but I also was a skateboarder. My best friend, who's now my bass player in my band, was a sousaphone and tuba player in the marching band. And you know, I hung around with goth kids and gay kids and all of the things. And
Hell yeah, I was um the Circle Jerks, Dead Kennedys, punk rock,
yeah,
kid, and
yeah,
then fell in love with metal, heavy metal, and like and I also truly appreciate it, and my parents so much for exposing me to a wide range of genre of music. So I grew up
mm-hmm.
with like Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, Jim Croce, Cat Stevens, Crosby, Stills and
Yeah. There
Nash,
we go.
and then like it and for me being Hispanic, I grew up a lot with old school Tejano and then country music, and then for me, uh, I was a military kid, so I had exposure to hip hop, rap, rock, heavy metal, death metal, punk, and it really expanded the the whole like everybody is just who they are, and they're just an awesome individual.
Yeah.
And like if you're gonna hate somebody, hate them because they're an asshole, not because not because what they look like. You
Right.
know.
And not because of the things that they enjoy, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Judge people by the character of their hearts, not by the way that they look or the color of their skin or their preferences, all of those things, you know?
No, absolutely. Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome shit.
actually, Loch
Um,
Ness Monster, you said is, you know, that's your favorite song. That's what that song is all about, you know, is, you know, we can get, I'll let you kind of lead how we get into talking about some of those things, but that song is about self-acceptance, um, and then, you know, showing other people how to do that too. So
yeah, yeah. Let's get into like the choice of the cryptid you use for that particular song, and also for Point Pleasant, that's obviously Mothman, but like for I Am the Loch Ness Monster, like would you consider like Loch Ness Monster being that type of individual that to like this is who I am, love me for who I am. Would you see yourself doing the same thing for something like I don't know, Sasquatch or something like are you are you writing the songs specifically for the cryptid, or does the cryptid inspire you to write the song?
a little bit of both, but I think the cryptid inspires me to write the song because I see something about myself in the stories. Um, I, I'll start with Loch Ness Monster, for example, which was actually the last song that I wrote. You know, the other three songs I wrote in like I said, from about 2010 to 2012, those three songs kind of came together. Loch Ness Monster I wrote in 2015 while I was in the vocal booth tracking the vocals.
Oh, nice.
So my buddy Jeremy came in town for one weekend and we jammed and we came up with that music. And I was like, this is something I need to put some vocals on it. And so when I was cutting the EP, I wrote it as I was recording line by line, and it had this underwater feel to it. And I always was intrigued by the Loch Ness Monster from a young age because I always thought, and this is kind of the little monologue I give before I play the song live. I was intrigued by the idea that like maybe a dinosaur or something, whatever it is, like if it is this like kind of plesiosaur-esque kind of animal somehow survived, you know, all these years and is alive somewhere in a lake on Earth. You know, I thought
Yeah.
it was a really cool thing. From a young age, I was fascinated by it. And I remember like there's an episode about Loch Ness Monster on X-Files. There were just different things that I remember watching when I was a kid about Loch Ness Monster. I thought, man, that's really cool. That'd be cool if that was real, you know? And so when I started writing the song, I thought if Nessie were real like that, it would be really awesome, right? Like people would line up for miles and miles and pay all kinds of money just to get a glimpse if there was a way for us to like get a good look at her or him.
Yeah.
And I thought, yeah, what a like magnificent creature, you know, like it's a really cool creature. But if it is real, and we haven't gotten a good look at it, like that's kind of sad that like this really fantastic beast is like a bottom dweller and like kind of swimming in the murky water and like only coming up occasionally for like air and food and you know whatever and I thought that's me, right? Like that's I for a long time was maybe ashamed of who I was. And I think this goes back to kind of some of the religious trauma stuff where you're taught like you're a terrible person, dirty sinner, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
you're not allowed to love yourself really because of all of the warnings to not do that kind of thing. Um, which that's a whole different topic. But I guess I just self-acceptance was something I struggled a lot with. I didn't really know who I was. And if there was any glimmer of knowing who I was, it was kind of like I denied that because I was self-sacrificing and all of these things, which really led to self-loathing. And when you do that to yourself, you project it onto other people. And I think that's why there's a lot of like negative emotion in the world. There's a lot of negative view of people. People don't like or hate what they don't understand,
Right.
and what they can't get a good look at. You know, so people are scared of the monster, right? And I was scared of the monster that I thought might be inside of me because I was always told that that was who I was this monster. And I realized that I was always taught that the light, like I said earlier, light drives out darkness. I actually am like a pretty neat animal. Like I'm a pretty cool creature. And so is everybody else. Like I start seeing the value in humanity and looking at people around me and going like, quit hiding yourself. Like quit lying about who you are. Quit pretending to be something you're not. Quit trying to be a version of yourself that you think might satisfy other people and just come up to the surface and show yourself. And some people might be scared of you. You know, like if Nessie came up out of Loch Ness tomorrow, there might be some people that ran for the hills because they're afraid like this monster is going to kill them. But I think a lot of people would be just completely fascinated and fall in love with it. And so that's kind of the message is like, come up to the surface and be who you are. Don't pretend to be a different version of yourself, and you'll find the people that will accept you and love you. And at the end of the day, if no one will, then I will. All right. So that's my deal. That's kind of what my monologue before we play that song. And it's more about me than it is about anybody else, but I hope that people receive it as about them too. And so, yeah, the cryptid inspired the song, but there's a lot there. There's a lot of subtext with all of these things. It's not just about the cryptids. It's about a lot more.
Yeah.
So that one was a fun one to write, and it's a fun one to play live still. It's still our favorite song to play live, even though we've written other stuff. We always close with it. And it means a lot to me. And even still talking about it, the way that song took shape and what it has become and what it means to me now, is still something really special that I don't have any hint of like that going away anytime soon. It still means a lot to me. So it's really special that it's starting to mean something to other people and it's starting to get some traction after all these years. You know, it's been almost 9 years. It'll be 9 years this year since I wrote that song, and people finally kind of started listening to it. So that's pretty cool.
I love it, man. I love it. I actually I let my wife hear the song yesterday, and she was blown away, and so she has already followed Spotify and things like that. It's I I've always said that the arts can do wondrous things when you are either trying to give a message out or you are trying to like unzip something in eternally inside you that you just want everybody to like, because what it is really is exposing your innermost feelings when you're a writer, when you're a musician, when you're an artist, because it's easy just to like cram all that stuff in and not have a creative outlet. But when you do have a creative outlet like music, there is that sense of vulnerability that people do put inside their work. Do you feel that um you you put a little bit of you into every single piece that you do, or do you want to hold back a little bit in that process, because it might be just a little bit exhausting after a while?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. That's a really good question because it's a little bit of both. Like I think I think when I'm writing, I'm all in. I think the reserving part of myself, because it can be exhausting, kind of comes on the back end, like after the song is out, because then I want to talk about it, and I try to reserve those conversations for venues like this where, people are actually listening to the conversation and they're not like, "Hey, shut up, play another song." Um, and
While they drink their 12th beer, it was like
right.
more.
Yeah. Right. So, but it can be a little exhausting, and it's also a little scary to be that vulnerable. I used to not think so because I'm a very extroverted person, and so I'll be best friends with anybody immediately, and tell them my life story and all of this stuff. And I've come to realize, like, when you're that vulnerable, like, it kind of comes at a price.
Yeah,
And so, I try to guard my family and myself at least a little bit, though I don't always want to. Like, I kind of always want to just like spill the beans about everything and just be completely 100% honest about everything. And that's probably not a good thing either. So hiding it in these songs, I think, is a good outlet where I can really be, I'm really fully honest and pour myself fully into the song, and it is 100% about me. But anybody that listens to it only gets like kind of that glimpse, and really art is subjective. So people will take whatever meaning away from
yeah.
these songs that they want when they listen to them, unless of course they hear me tell these stories, and then they know, oh, no, they've got to look under the hood at what it really means. Um, so yeah, that's a really good question. But yeah, like I said, I think that's probably, it's a little bit of both, right? Like fully into the song, but also kind of hidden to where not everybody gets the full picture, more
Hey,
or
people
less.
people come
Yeah.
to my mediocre podcast to get the hard hitting questions, man. This is how this works. Yeah, because
Well,
I've
hopefully I'll get some people listening to it. I don't know. Maybe 10 of my friends might give you a listen.
It's awesome. Yeah,
Uh,
I'll take
yeah.
it. I'll take it. I started writing. I started writing again after a very very long hiatus, because, and I talked about this on the show before. Um, so I always wanted to be a writer. Always wanted to be a writer. Um, and I gave it up a long time ago because I fell into this cookie cutter, supposed to be what you are supposed to do with your life type blueprint.
Hmm.
And what it basically, what for me, my blueprint was: you graduate high school, go to college, and then you get a family and what have you. But what I ended up doing was I graduated high school, went to college, the Twin Towers fell. I joined the military. My dad was still in the military. I got out, went to college, found my wife, had kids, and now I don't hate my job. I'm thankful I have a job, but it's like
Yeah.
it's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And then it was my wife and I in our old apartment, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna just write something. I'm just gonna just start writing, and then it turned into a a small section of a book.
Yes.
Then
Yeah.
chapter one turned to chapter 15, and then I started doing these vocal contests, and I started to write poetry, and I started to write more and more and more, and then I rekindled this flame that was pretty much almost to extinction.
Hmm.
And when I finally woke up, maybe 2 years ago, and I was like, I don't want to work until I'm 64, or wait, now it's what, 60, 67 and a half to retirement age. I don't want to do that. And then kick myself in the ass and say I should have done that. I should have at least tried to publish my book when I was younger.
Yeah.
So that's exactly how all of this started. It was just like
Yeah.
I this whole thing called content creation is just this weird concept that modern people can just go into a video camera, record themselves playing video games, and that's their livelihood. That's what they do for their lives. And for me, like all I want to do is just like write stories and make people like think about more than just the day-to-day grind.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that there are people like you who are are doing it and making wonderful content and wonderful music, and having a small little voice for like anybody who wants to hear it can hear it.
Yep.
And I I think I'm a little bit scared being older and thinking that I can't do this I can't do this much longer. But that's nonsense. Like I can keep on doing this for as long as I have as long as I'm breathing.
Yep.
When you look at down the road, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like, you know what, if I'm gonna put one more album out, you know what, I'm gonna go on tour. I can go on tour, I can do this, I can do that. What's your 5 to 10 year, like, music wise, plan for right now?
Man, another really good question. And also I love that lead up and I just want to encourage you, do what you're doing, man, because we're not all that different. Um, I I may not look like it, but I have a corporate job that I work 9 to 5 every day that, it pays the bills.
Yeah, it pays the bills.
It's not the thing that I love to do. But it does afford me the margin and time and space to be able to create as a musician. And, um, I'm really protective about my time. So that I'm balancing it and giving enough time to my family and my kids and my wife. And then I can borrow some time to sit out here in this garage and write songs and go play with my buddies, once or twice a month. Um, I think my goal at this point is, one, get this album done, because I feel like it's going to close. I'm like closing the book on one chapter of life with this one. And, which is it's a very long chat. It's really kind of the prologue to where I'm going. Um, and I think after that, it's kind of figuring out what stories I want to tell next, and what aspects of the human condition and struggle that I want to tackle with allegory, be it with sea monsters or cryptids or whatever other kind of folklore that I want to do that with.
Yeah.
I've just realized that at this point, the goal can't be to like get to a place. Like I can't be looking too far in the future. I need to be looking at the thing that's in front of me and then just be patient and let it become what it will be. And then when I get there, I'll know, and then the next thing will come. That being said, of course I dream about things, like I said, I got a 9 to 5 job. It would be awesome to not have that, but I don't know if that's realistic. But I can dream about it. What would I do if I didn't have a full-time job? I don't imagine that I would just create music nonstop. I would want to, help my kids do the same thing, and not have my kids go down the same path if they don't want to. Some of my kids might want to go to college and just do a normal job that may be their pursuit. And for some people that works.
Yeah.
I think maybe they have a creative spark that they might not, they might not like that. And so I just want to fuel what they're good at and what they're passionate about, so that they have a better chance of a livelihood with it early on, versus like us, where it's like you did the thing that was expected of you, and then in your late 30s you're realizing, man, if I would have put this kind of energy and effort into it before I got married, I might have made a career of it and then been able to get married and actually invite my family into a life that I already created, instead of trying to not escape from, but
Right.
borrow time from the life that I've created now to do the thing that I kind of wish I would have done back then. And there's no regret. Like I have no regret about where I'm at. I think it's all quite beautiful, actually. I wouldn't have written the songs that I've written now back then. I would have written dumb pop punk songs that didn't mean anything, about a girl that didn't exist, because that's what you do. Pop punk is either love songs or, sticking the middle finger to the government,
Yeah.
and those things are great. But like, that those songs are a dime a dozen, I want to write something that makes people really think about things and go, oh, that's interesting. And, song about the Mothman or a song about the Loch Ness Monster. There's not a lot of that out there. Although there's more now. I'm finding a lot of bands that I really love that are doing similar things. Um, but yeah, I think the goal is maybe at some point as my kids get older and my financial restraints kind of get a little easier, because I'm not putting food in five mouths all the time and clothing them and housing them, that maybe at some point I might be able to kind of like retire into being like I kind of maybe see myself in retirement just doing like the folk singer thing and just going and playing small venues, play for 2 hours, make a few $100, do that 2 or 3 nights a week, and then travel with my wife, go to Lake Loch Ness, or go to France, because my wife likes France. So I think that those things are like maybe like the dream goals, of being able to do the things that I really love to do, and kind of like alongside of my wife doing the things that she really loves to do, and like we can do them in the same place. And she's also a brilliant writer. Like she's a poet, and she's really good. She doesn't have quite the capacity to do it right now as I do, because being a mom of 5 kids is like mentally and emotionally exhausting.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and I'm trying to do my best to kind of like relieve that for her so she can participate in this stuff with me, because it's so fulfilling and life-giving for me. I want her to have the same thing, but we also have to raise these kids. So at some point, that's kind of the goal, is like we'll kind of retire into being the weird artists that we are. Um, if that's okay with her, if that's what she wants to do. If not, like we'll figure it out. We always do. I I spent a lot of years making plans for myself and kind of dragging her along, so I'm reluctant to say, here's my long-term goals that I haven't communicated to my wife at all. It's like I dream about stuff, but I don't put big expectations on it. But yeah, I think to be able to make a living just being creative, the podcasting thing is kind of fun too. I've always wanted to do a podcast where I talk to other songwriters, similar to like the Narrative Quest thing, where you're just talking to people about creative process. But I don't know. I don't know if that'll happen or not. Maybe it will. Maybe being on these few podcast episodes recently might light a fire under me to do something like that too.
I tell you what, it is it is so simple to do. If honestly, all you really need is you just put a cell phone in the middle of two people talking, you hit record, and there you go. You just have a
Yeah.
conversation. You put it on the socials, put it on the interwebs, and boom, you have a show. Um, I actually would love to be a fly on the wall with you talking to other musicians and artists about um this may sound weird, but the craft of music writing and the craft of being a musician. I would just love to just like sit in the back with the beer and just like listen to this like
Yeah.
and just listen in. People who are followers of the show know that my wife quit her job last year and became a full time artist. She does
That's amazing.
oddity stuff, so she
Yeah.
arts and oddities. Uh, and when you talk about you and your family, I 100% can empathize and sympathize with that, especially when you know you start to wonder like what would happen if I just kind of quit my job and did this full time. Like would I crumble our household, or maybe I would get a lucky break and become a millionaire writer. I don't know, but
Yeah.
um
I
when
think for me, that, you know, I, if the conditions were right, maybe I might do it.
Yeah.
Um, I need to help my wife get to a place where she has some felt safety around like our income and like the household and all of those things. And then maybe I'll broach that conversation and say, hey, what would it look like if I tried to do some creative stuff full time? But I don't think that that's like, I mean, again, I dream about that stuff, but those conversations aren't really there. They're not ready for me to have yet. And so I won't. And if she listens to this podcast and even hears me like suggest those things, she might like have a mini panic attack. Don't worry, Dave. I'm not quitting my job. If you listen to this, I don't have any plans to do that, but I do think about it sometimes. And, um, you know, I think I could do it. I think I could do it, you know, rise to the occasion. Like you said, would it crumble? Would I lose everything? I don't think so, but I think it would be really hard. And we've had enough really hard recently that we don't need more really hard right now. So
Oh,
we need to
yeah.
rest and like, I've done a lot in the past couple of years to hopefully give my family some security and safety to where they don't feel like they're riding by the seat of my pants, because that's kind of how I've lived a lot of my life. And so we've got some stability. We're going to hang on to that for a little bit, and then maybe we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, I've struggled to climb the corporate ladder to the point now where we were sitting down at a table, and my wife was like, "I'm not happy," and I was like, "You know what? Just do it. Let's see what we can do and do it." And that's the most joyous thing I can ever give my wife, is the freedom to do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
And her art is amazing.
Yeah.
Quick plug, her art is chaos, KOAS, chaos. It's Kaylee's art and Odyssey shop. I screw that up, KAOS.
KAOS. Yeah. Yeah. I got it.
Kaylee's art
Yeah.
and Odyssey shop. It's a
Yeah.
fantastic, she does vendor shows. It's so amazing. I'm so proud of her. I'm so proud of
Yeah.
her.
That's
um
amazing. Well, you're inspiring me because maybe I ought to push my wife more since she's the stay at home person. Hey, you should, what I need to be doing is creating some more space for her to do those things, because if she can get there, then maybe later I can get there, you know?
yeah, and seeing the creative process with how she does her art, it's super fascinating. It is incredibly fascinating how is a blank piece of paper can just become this wonderful thing, you know. And like I dabble in art. I was a musician. I did have a band way long ago, a garage band in high school. I like the arts. I have to put out there in the universe, I am a writer.
Yes, you
um
are.
so when I do see these creative people do creative things, it really gets me fired up. It's like, man, like I all right, you did that. I got to put in one more chapter. I got to put in 1,000 more words on here. I got to put in, one more verse on this poem that I've been sitting on for so many years.
Yeah.
um but let's get back to cryptids real quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you anybody who follows the show knows that I'm a believer. I believe in most of the cryptids that are
Okay.
out there.
Yeah.
Things that are ridiculous, like the snallygaster, I don't, that's just too much for me.
Yeah.
Do you also have that small little belief that there might be something out there in the woods that is a chupacabra, Sasquatch, or
Yeah.
and things like that?
Yeah. I would, I don't classify myself as a true believer because there's still enough skepticism in me to go, there's usually kind of a way to explain stories and things like that. And so I kind of tend to fall on the side of the debunkers a lot of times. Um, but the fascination and curiosity is still there. It's still kind of like the what if.
Hmm.
The Mothman was the thing that really started this whole process for me. I remember watching the Mothman prophecies when I was in high school because it came out in 2002, the year before I graduated. And thinking like that was a crazy movie, like it was really weird. And I always took the based on true events part to mean like the bridge collapse, like the natural disasters that, Indrid Cold kind of predicts and all of that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, those things were all true events. And then this Mothman story was kind of put in this movie around this. I didn't realize that this was actually a historical event that took place in 1966 and 1967, because of course they modernized the movie too. So it's more, not current times, but I guess set in like the late 80s, early 90s in the movie. And so when I initially saw the movie, I just thought, oh yeah, that was kind of weird. And I was always the person to go, oh, based on a true story. Yeah, like sure, what part of the story was true? Like that road that they drove down, like that's the true story. Okay, you know. And so then like a few years later, I remember like what I watched it again and I was talking with someone. I was like, well, like that's all just made, it's like the bridge collapse actually happened, but there was no Mothman.
Right.
And someone was like, no, it's like actually a true, like the whole thing's a true story. And I'm like, what? So I start looking into it and I'm going, this is fascinating. What's fascinating to me about it is like the corroboration of stories and people who otherwise like strike me as like pretty sane, like talking about pretty insane stuff, and going like all these people are kind of convincing. So what is it about this story that people are so convinced that it actually happened? And so I just started digging and reading more and read the Mothman prophecies, read the, watch all the Mothman prophecies documentaries, read other stories, comic books, and go, man, this is really cool. And so then like the Mothman thing kind of becomes part of this persona as a musician, that I write this song, just kind of really the song is documenting, it's really about John Keel, right? In the movie it's John Klein. And I love how, I don't know if you know this, but in the movie they split John Klein into two characters, right? It's Richard Gere, and then it's the investigator that he goes and visits, like in Chicago. You remember that part of the movie where he
Oh
goes and visits the
yes.
guy?
Yeah.
And you know that professor's last name is Leak, which is Keel backwards, right? So he's like this paranormal investigator, where Richard Gere is just this guy who's like kind of obsessed with this creature.
Yeah.
And figuring out, really he's obsessed with like trying to figure out a way to get his wife back. And the Mothman's kind of like leading, spoiler alert if anybody's not seen this 21-year-old movie, 22-year-old movie, like, but he's like obsessed with that. So it's like these two, it's really, I think Professor Leak is John Keel warning his younger self, John Klein, hey, careful how far down this road you go, because it's going to ruin your life. Because John Keel, John Keel, the actual guy who wrote Mothman Prophecies, lost friends, lost family. Really, the whole thing kind of wrecked his life. And people talk about profiteering and stuff, and sure, the guy made money, but what did it cost him? And so I was fascinated by that element of it, like the human element in the story, which is like this guy is like so obsessed with this thing that he just like almost like loses his grip on reality.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a cautionary tale about like what things we get obsessed with and how far down the rabbit hole we're willing to go. And just kind of it's okay to look. Like I'm all a fan of like looking and going, what if? That's cool, maybe. But like I'm kind of tethered to this other, like the reality that I know is real, that I can touch, that I know is true. And let me tell you, dude, after a decade of writing this stuff, like the tether has frayed a few times, and I've gotten scared that I've almost been in a reality that I was afraid was real. But I'm still not, so that's my answer to the true believer thing. But that's the Mothman thing is really kind of the thing that sparked it. How is it that like hundreds of people claim to have seen the same thing, and then the bridge collapses and all of a sudden they never see him again? Now, there are answers to that question if you want to, debunk it, you can do it. But sometimes it's fun to not debunk things and just go, yeah, that's spooky shit, like,
Yeah, it plays into the whole persona that what Mothman is. Mothman is supposed to be the
like,
warning
yeah,
of a pending doom.
right.
And yeah, that's yeah, as one of the heavy hitters. I haven't done Mothman yet. I'm waiting towards the end of the 50 states to do the heavy hitters. I'm going to do Sasquatch, Mothman. I'm going to do let's see. I think there was one more I was going to do as that was a heavy hitter. Because those ones are so well known and
Yeah,
so researched, and there's so much pop culture that surrounds them
yeah,
that I wanted to bring in actual researchers. I wanted to bring in like cryptozoologists on the show, and I wanted for them to give their 2 cents on everything. Um, because when I did the Q&A show, I spawned the question on the social media on Facebook, and I was like, if you had a chance to ask a question to a cryptozoologist or to a podcast about cryptids, like what would you ask? And the majority of them were like, I want to know and ask questions to the researcher. I want answers from them. Like, what do you
yeah,
think?
yeah,
Because the books and all this stuff can say, oh yeah, well there's evidence here, evidence there. Like, no, it'll be way more interesting to bring those people on
yeah.
because just
And
like you
there's a
said,
yeah,
how can 100 people experience the same exact thing
yeah,
and yet no one has an answer for it?
right.
And that
Yeah, and
fascinates me.
there's a gazillion guys like us that have opinions about it, but we're just guys with opinions about it. We're not the researchers. And so I recognize that there are guys out there that have devoted a lot of time and resources into kind of investigating these things. And that's kind of where, there is an element of, I go, are those guys like, wasting their time, but also intrigued by it? Cause I'm like, you would think you would get to a certain point and go, yeah, I didn't find anything, I'm done. But
Yeah,
these guys stick with it, So there's like the conviction and like the belief, the same way I feel maybe that's me with like my faith in God, is like my experience says like, yes, it's true.
right.
Which, so that's funny that I'm not a true believer in like these things that maybe might be physical animals, but like I'm a true believer in like the Almighty, and so maybe that says something more about me, but you know, the conviction, because it's what their experience tells them. Like if evidence told me, like I haven't encountered the thing yet that has made me go, yeah, I guess that's not real. I'm gonna give that up, and like turn my back entirely on the idea of higher power and all of that kind of thing. And it hasn't
Yeah,
happened. And maybe it's the same with these guys, is they're, so that's convicting to me. Like there's some conviction, and it's compelling to know that people are out there devoting so much time to it. And you would think that if they came across evidence that pointed to the contrary, they would be like, I've turned every stone, I've looked, and I haven't found anything, and so I guess I'm done,
yeah,
and yet they persist. So that says something, I guess. There are certain cryptids, like you said earlier, you're not, all of the silly ones, the jackalope and things like that are just, obviously people pranking each other and that kind of thing. But Bigfoot, Mothman, Nessie, um, those are compelling to me. You know, Nessie maybe not so much. There, that's always kind of like there's a sighting, and it's a log. It's but it's cool to think about. And
yeah,
if it were true, like what's the consequence of that? Like nothing. That's amazing. Um, maybe if
yeah. And
Mothman's
then
real, there's some consequence to that. But uh, Sasquatch, I mean, if they're real, they've been out there in the woods, not bugging anyone for hundreds of years. Cool. Glad they're out there, like, although it depends on who you ask about that, I guess. Some people think that they have malintent, but Um,
Yeah, and like and you can spend the next like hours going into aliens and paranormal
yeah, yeah.
and things like that. We are approaching the 1 hour mark. I do want to ask you one final question about your music.
Okay.
Um, I want to know what type of major influences, because I can see here like either the Ventures, Cat Stevens, Paul Simon, Calexico, Death Cab for Cutie, Dinosaur Jr., Son Volt. Um, what other influences go into your style of music?
Um, I mean, really, what you just listed there is like what I consider the really like the round table of influence in my life in terms of core memory. Like those artists have core memory slots in my life, and so I think when I sit down to write, regardless of whether or not I'm trying to, elements of those artists come out in the things that I write. Because I and the coolest confirmation about that is whenever I play and people name specifically those artists without seeing that list, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
people that I've never seen me before, they've never seen my Spotify page, they've never seen my website that says these are the bands that influence me, specifically mention those bands. And it's confirmation that, like, yes, the core memories of these specific artists have shaped the way that I write as a musician and the kind of music that I create. Um, there are other things, like I had the punk phase, I had the emo phase, I had, there's a lot of different phases of me growing up trying to figure out who I was as a musician. And so I still carry some of those elements with me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I mean, I would say probably the two greatest influences are the Ventures and Cat Stevens. Um, and then the 90s grunge alternative, really REM and Dinosaur Jr. were big for me because that's what my older brother listened to. So I would,
Uh-huh.
anytime I'm at a show and like there's a really good like grunge band or shoegaze, slow gaze, like all that kind of stuff, and it's real heavy, gritty, Sonic Youth kind of style, all that stuff. I immediately, if I get a chance to talk to him, I say, dude, you transported me. I was a little kid with my ear pressed against my brother's bedroom door while he's yelling at me to get away. And I'm like, what is that music you're listening to? I need to hear it, you know? And so there was this element of like wanting to be like my older brother. And so really trying to get a hold of the things that he liked because I liked him so much. I wanted to be a musician. So it was like, I can play the music you like, and you'll like me if I do that. And whether or not that's misguided, it's stuck with me. And I still, my brother and I, we don't really have a ton in common. We live an entire country apart. He lives in Arizona. I live in, Illinois. But I think that there's still an element there. Like if he ever sat down and listened to my music, I think he would hear it and go, whoa, like Joel was like listening to the stuff that I liked. Um, so yeah, like the big influences I think are listed there, but there are other things. I find myself inspired more these days, kind of like you were saying about like by other just normal people like me, just indie artists that are creating, and I'm going, holy crap! Like you should be on top 40 radio. Like what and you're sitting here in an Instagram chat with me and like are telling me that my songs are good. Like I'm not worthy. Um, if any of you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw in my Instagram stories this song that I was posting about called Snakes by a band called Death Waits. And he just released his record yesterday, and it's indie alternative, it's 90s grunge style kind of stuff. And I was like, dude, this is the best indie alternative album I can remember hearing from an unsigned artist. Like
Oh, that's
it's
awesome.
amazing. He, and did it all himself. And honestly, if I do a podcast where I talk to writers, like he's like top of my list of people I'll talk to. And I'm just so inspired by other people that I'm like, oh, you're doing it. I'm doing it. Maybe I can do it too. Just like you were saying, it's like you get kind of fired up by someone else that's just like you doing something creative, and you go, oh, okay, I can write another 1,000 words, or I can write a chapter, or I can sit down and come up with another riff, and
Hell
okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
something. Maybe, okay, I'll get out my index of like, I've got a book called 50, which is funny. It's called 50 States of Cryptids. I'm going to grab it right now. And I just knocked it over. But this was a gift from my buddy Andrew, and Andrew probably will listen to this podcast because he's a sweetheart and he likes to listen to everything that I do. But this book, 50 States of Cryptids, or United States of Cryptids. Sorry, I get it mixed up.
Yes.
But like,
yeah,
dude,
so
this book is fantastic, and so I did just release on my Bandcamp page. You'll see there's a song called "Listening to the Wendigo," and it's just acoustic. But my daughter flipped open this book and goes, "Wendigo, let's write about that." And so I played an acoustic riff, and she just was reading the story while I was playing it. And then I said, "Yeah, that's something. We'll work on that. I'll put a pin in that and write that later."
Oh,
And,
that's awesome.
So, there's just so much material, it's like, it's endless. But I get inspired by another artist that's an influence, whether or not stylistically it's an influence on me, it's an influence on me creatively to go, okay, now I got to put pen to paper and do something.
Yeah.
And even if I can only borrow 30 minutes here and 10 minutes there, like I can write ideas down. I do a lot of voice memoing on my phone and like humming melodies, and then I go back and I listen to it and I go, okay, can I like pluck that out on guitar? So yeah, it's fun to listen to indie art. I listen to a lot more indie artists than I listen to signed artists anymore, because that's just a pool that is very untapped. And I try to point other, like my non-musician friends, I'm like, hey dude, turn off your top 40 stuff. Listen to this playlist that I made of all of these people you've never heard of, because it's so easy to find, and it's lost the pretentiousness that it used to have. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't know if you were ever around like indie people like in the late 90s, early 2000s that are like, I heard that band before anybody else heard of them. And I'm like,
oh, absolutely. While they're,
it's like, it's kind of like gatekeeping a little bit.
Yeah.
And what the internet has done is it's just like opened the floodgates, and it's like, look, it's just all free to like access. Like there's no pomp and circumstance about it. There's just a gazillion amazing artists out there doing what they love and creating amazing art. And yet we're willing to spend $1,000 to go to a concert, but not spend $10 to support a person doing what they love. And arguably maybe creating better things than what you're seeing on the big stages.
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I do love big ticket bands. Like I'm a huge Tool fan, Deftones fan, all that. But like, I would much rather go sit in the back of a dirty, musty bar with a $2 Pabst Blue Ribbon and listen to a folk singer just belt out like a song that they wrote like in a van, traveling cross country. Like that is just, and that is just fantastic to me. That would be an awesome night.
Yeah. So indie shows are amazing. Indie artists are amazing. A huge influence on me. Aside from my, like I said, the gamut of artists that you rattled off there. The Ventures were hugely influential to me because, like you said, your parents exposed you to a wide range of music as a kid. Mine was a little bit more restricted. Not that I wasn't allowed to listen to things. It's just that it wasn't present in our home. So it was either the Sunday gospel stuff or 50s and 60s, Motown, 50s and 60s pop stuff that was on like oldies radio. And so
like the Drifters, the Penguins, and all that stuff was going on. Okay,
so, there was like doo-wop stuff, but also Motown, some rock stuff, Buddy Holly and Elvis and stuff like that. But early Elvis, because older Elvis was bad, because he gave into sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? So there was like that influence where like my dad was like, yeah, young Elvis, he was a good boy, and like he never really was he was always kind of a rebel, you know what I mean? Like, but his hair wasn't sloppy back then, so my dad thought he was a good boy, but my dad had a small record collection, and the other thing that was influential was my dad was into muscle cars, classic cars. He had a 63 Chevy Impala that he spent most of my life restoring.
Ooh,
And so he spent a lot of time in his garage tinkering on that car. And I just wanted to be close to my dad. And so I spent a lot of time in the garage as well. And what
yeah,
came along with that was surf music, because classic cars, muscle cars went hand in hand with the Beach Boys, Ronnie and the Daytonas, the Cobras, you
yes.
know.
Dick
Um,
Dale, the king of
yeah,
surf
yes,
guitar. Yeah.
yes, yeah. Dick Dale, and then the Ventures were instrumental. So of course, I heard songs by uh, like the Beatles and other rock and roll artists that I didn't actually listen to and didn't know the words to. I heard the instrumental version played by the Ventures of "Hey Jude" before I ever heard the actual song "Hey Jude."
Oh
Um,
wow.
and so everything that the Ventures did was done with this heavy tremolo. It was all, they played those like Mossrite guitars that were like real weird shaped, but kind of sounded like a Stratocaster. It was all very surf vibey.
Yeah.
And so that has carried to this day into my tone. That's like my guitar tone, and that's what comes out of me when I play, to the point that I've had people say, "Hey, have you ever heard of this band from the 60s called the Ventures?" And anytime somebody says that to me, I'm like, yes, yes, thank you for recognizing that, because
Yeah,
nobody,
yeah, all
that's a
right.
deep cut, but those guys wrote they wrote the Hawaii 5 theme song. They played Wipeout and Tequila and all kinds of, Green Onions, and they played all kinds of stuff that, the Batman theme, the 60s Batman theme song, the Ventures did. Um so a lot of people don't know those things, but it's yeah, that they're the biggest, they're the number one biggest influence on me, because it was that was like the core memory as a kid, was that surf rock tone.
Yeah.
Obviously the Beach Boys were probably kind of a close second, but the Ventures were, that's the core of my musical pursuit, because they did, I mean, even though they did the surf rock thing, they did everything. So I have this very, they did country, they did, real weird experimental psychedelic rock and stuff like that. And so I had this wide gamut of influence in one band because they covered everybody's music instrumentally. So
Yeah.
all of the vocal
Before,
melodies were done on guitar.
yeah, like
Um,
before, like Jefferson Airplane was, and all that psychedelic rock coming in. Yeah, they were ahead of their time,
yeah,
hugely ahead of their time.
yeah.
And Joel, I truly appreciate you coming on the show and talking to
Hey,
me about
thank you for
cryptids
having
and
me.
about the creative
Yeah,
process and about your music, man. Where
yeah.
can people find you?
I just launched a website. I don't know if people do
What?
that anymore. Listen to joel.net. Real easy. Um, and then all my social media is just listen to Joel. So Instagram handle is at listen to Joel, facebook.com/listen to Joel. I'm on Threads. I don't know I think you're maybe on Threads as well. I don't know if you
Oh
are.
no, no, and I'm not on Threads. I'm not
Threads
cool
is
enough
real.
for Threads yet.
Well, dude, as a writer, let me just tell you, you should get over there, man, because there's a really cool community of like creatives that are very supportive of each other on Threads. I don't go there to gain fans and followers. I go there to like kind of commiserate with other artists and like talk about
Really?
creative process stuff. Yeah. So I think you would really enjoy that space, and really curate it to like if you're just doing creative writing, like as like a novelist, like you will find a lot of other people doing that. Um, I've met all kinds of singer songwriters and grunge artists and stuff like that all over the country. Death Waits, I met them on Threads. They're from Toronto. Um, have some friends in New York, have some friends in Pennsylvania, Nashville, Texas, that we all talk all the time now,
That's
and,
awesome.
and, again, if I ever do a podcast, you'll probably hear from a lot of those people. Um, so yeah, listen to Joel, that's everything, but listen to joel.net. So Joel, um, just like the book of the Bible.
I am 100% going to tag that
Yeah.
now, and I'm going to send everybody to the website.
Yeah.
Joel, man, I do appreciate you coming on. Man, your music is awesome. You're awesome. I can't thank you enough for spending a little, now an hour and 15 minutes with me. Um, and yeah, um, You have any last words before we end this?
Just man, I appreciate you inviting me on. Very honored to be considered worthy to be listened to for an hour and 15 minutes. Hopefully your audience thinks the same thing. I'll listen back to my recorded voice and go, oh gosh, what was I saying? But yeah, thank you very much. On the website, if anybody goes to the website, there's a store on there. Hopefully by the time you post this episode, there will be t-shirts, stickers, buttons, CDs, all that kind of stuff that you can get. It's all, actually, I just had the t-shirts done. It's the Loch Ness Monster, and it says "You are not a monster" on it.
Oh, awesome.
And so those should be up and live in the next couple of days, I think. And then, so I'd appreciate it if you don't buy anything, go to Spotify or Apple or whatever, or my Bandcamp page, and just stream it, listen to it, give it a listen. And then if you even like it a little bit, just share it. Like, just press the share button. It's real easy to do. I think a lot of people pass that up from, I'm sure as a creator, maybe you run into that frustration. It's not frustration, because I don't want to put expectation on my friends, but like, I'm passionate about a thing. I share things that my friends are passionate about. I hope that my friends will share the things that I'm passionate about. So
Yeah.
if you care about it, if you like it, if it speaks to you, just please press the share button and say, hey, check this guy out. I'm not trying to get famous. I just want people to be moved by the music and the stories. So
Yeah.
I appreciate your time, man.
Right here in camera. Support local artists. Support Joel.
Yes.
Share, share.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Later, y'all.
Go right. See you, buddy.